Monica Perez here, joined once again by Weezy of the What is Truth podcast. And boy, does he bring the truth. How you doing, Weezy?
I'm doing good. Great to be back. Always a treat to chat with you, Miss Perez.
Thank you. And I have to say, people loved our last conversation. This is part 2 about Lincoln. So if you hadn't heard the first one, you can go listen to that. But I have a feeling it'll be great listening, even if you didn't listen to the first one. And I'm super excited to hear your continuing conclusions and investigation on this topic.
Yeah, I definitely recommend to listen to our first
Okay.
conversation so you can get caught up.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, this chat will be, if you are a fan of the Lincoln Assassination or historical events, I think this one will blow some people's minds. A lot of my research is inspired by the late great David McGowan, and I always give him props and respect. You can find his work that is run by his daughter. The website is centerforuninformedamerica.com, which is long for CIA, essentially. And if you think about it, yeah, and that's something McGowan, was known for, his sense of humor. But you can read his Lincoln book there, or blog on his website. There's also an audio version on there. I also did the audio version of McGowan's book on my podcast player. So if you go to my platforms, Odyssey or Spotify, just search Lincoln Assassination, and all my work that pertains to Lincoln, you can find there. On my Odyssey channel, I have a playlist, and I have many videos because I do bring a unique take, and Mr. McGowan is no longer with us. He passed away 10 years ago. And so all I have tried to do is expand on what he started in loving memory,
Yeah, I would love to listen to your audio book version of so you read his whole thing?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Super cool. I mean, I do have a couple of mistakes, like some of the names. Instead of saying Seward, for example, William Seward, I said Seward.
Yeah, that's right. But most people probably don't know.
And they'll, people will hopefully understand. And I didn't want to record. I mean, it took me over 10, 12 hours.
Yeah. No, I do that sometimes too. And it's a lot of work. It's kind of tiring, which is weird. You wouldn't think so. I'll put that in the show notes too. So what I'd like you to do, just you can either pick it up where we left off, or if you want to just, give a sentence or two of, backstory of where we're starting right now. And then, just walk me through it.
Absolutely. So the Seward mansion attack was an attack that was supposed to take place at roughly the same time that John Wilkes Booth allegedly shot Lincoln. And spoiler alert, if you hadn't listened to our first talk, I named Henry Rathbone as the suspect, as the more likely shooter of Lincoln, which is completely different than any you'll hear, talk on the subject. Even with folks that believe in the Lincoln conspiracy, they will all say that Booth definitely killed Lincoln. They will also say that the Seward Mansion attack definitely did happen. The Seward Mansion attack, and this is what I mean. If you missed our first part, you may get lost, so please revisit this. But the Seward Mansion attack was supposed to take place at the same time, similar to during 9/11 when planes hit at multiple locations at the same time to cause mass terrorism. The Seward Mansion attack occurring at the same time was supposed to, allegedly, if you go with the official story, was to produce mass pandemonium, chaos, disrupt the ongoings of DC. That's what it was about. But you don't really hear about the Seward Mansion attack. And you don't hear too much of the Lincoln assassination details, really. Most people seem to think It was just John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor, hating Lincoln so much and killing Lincoln. End of story.
Like
There's
he ran up to him, shot him, and then jumped off the balcony. But that's definitely not what happened, because the door was blocked. There was all sorts of stuff that happened in preparation of that. And I had never even thought of that a year ago. I didn't even know there was any kind of controversy around the assassination. And now, I mean, even within the conspiracies theories, there's a lot of contradictions.
Yeah. And that's what I try to say in our first chat. I give you the official story, and then I give you what other people may say, and I give you every angle and just let you decide. But I think when you assemble all the pieces together, you realize, yeah, none of the story makes sense. And the Seward Mansion is no different from the John Wilkes Booth element. So in the official story of the Seward Mansion attack, if you can show the screen of Mr. William Seward. And I want to talk about Mr. William Seward just briefly. He was Secretary of State at the time of when Lincoln got shot. Obviously, when the years that pass by, people forget about certain characters, certain figures. William Seward is known for a couple of big items that I if people knew about him, they're like, oh, okay, that's William Seward. He is credited for acquiring the purchase of Alaska from Russia in 1867. And at the time, it was labeled as Seward's Folly. And people were like, why would you spend so much money on a bunch of woods? People felt it didn't make any sense. But then in 1890, when people started finding gold out there, like, oh, wow, this was actually a steal of a deal. So he's known for that. He's also known, I mean, we're in December recording this, and we are a few weeks removed from Thanksgiving. He drafted the Thanksgiving Proclamation in 1863, and Lincoln later ratified it. So he's known for the Thanksgiving that we know today, as far as celebrating it on the last Thursday of every of November, being designated as Thanksgiving is thanks to this guy.
It
William
always
Seward.
bummed me out that was such a like government ordained holiday. Were people celebrating it before that, or do I have to feel like it's Mother's Day or something?
Well,
and is it total bullshit?
So for many years prior, there was a lady, I can't remember her name, but she was trying to get Thanksgiving going. And the real Thanksgiving is actually darker. It's not this little, the Indians breaking bread and everyone's happy. And then I remember as a kid hearing the Thanksgiving story, like, wow, that's a magical, cool story. So what happened to the Indians?
Yeah, how did we mess that up?
Like they just
like
disappeared. But then when you realize that Thanksgiving is actually a lot darker, and so the reason it was getting pushed for to get celebrated on for November at the end, last Thursday or whatever that they settled on was because they wanted, so tensions for Civil War were already simmering. It's not like overnight they decided, you know what, we're mad and we're gonna fight, we're gonna secede. It just happened overnight. No, this was many years in the making. And so to introduce a holiday like Thanksgiving was an effort to try to simmer emotions down, try to
draw on our common heritage, our founding, the Revolutionary War, which was those original colonies.
Yeah, so really that's one of the major reasons. And again, William Seward was the one that drafted the Thanksgiving Proclamation in 1863. William Seward, he was originally from New York, and apparently when he was a kid, he had some beef with his dad, and he went down to Georgia, and that's where he witnessed slavery firsthand, and he became a hardcore, we are told, a hardcore anti-slavery guy. He was considered a far leftist, a super progressive at his time, in that time period. And allegedly, when he was in Georgia, he was looking for work, and he saw a position to be principal of a school. and he got the position, and he was only 17 years old. So as a 17,
Wow. I guess
yeah.
people weren't that educated back then. So to
Well,
find an educated guy.
see, and that's what a lot of people will say. Well, it was a different time. Really, though, how much different? You and a 17-year-old is not very different from a
So who was
17-year-old
so who
today.
okay. So he was an inside job from the get-go. I always say
I
that
don't know. Well, yeah,
created person.
that's what official people will say. Well, he was probably well connected. His family, blah blah blah. Man, that sounds weird. But and I only mentioned this little story because it's funny. A 17-year-old
Yeah.
principal, like he beats everyone out.
It's like Charlie
Um,
Kirk.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was on
yeah,
Fox News when he was 17. It's like, wow, that's so cool.
yeah. And William Seward, I mean, he then eventually gets his law degree and becomes a very successful, super successful lawyer. Um, and he actually was one of the, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first one to introduce in one of his cases uh, a case to make for insanity. So if a defendant did something, I'm pretty damn sure he was the first one to use that plea of insanity. My client is innocent because he was insane at the moment in time. So um, that's just a little bit of background on William Seward. But in regards to the Lincoln assassination, he was the Secretary of State. We are told that this guy right here, let's see, can you see that on your screen? We are told that this Lewis Payne Powell, I made this little meme.
Oh, it looks great. Yeah.
I put
He
Calvin
was great
Klein.
looking. Yeah.
We are told that Lewis Payne Powell, on the night of April 14, 1865, at roughly around 10:15 at night, the same time that Booth was due to shoot Lincoln, Lewis Payne Powell goes over to the Seward Mansion. And the Seward Mansion no longer exists. So here's a sketch of what it may have looked like. It was a 3-story, 30-room mansion. Okay. And it was located, let's see here. It was located. Okay, here's a picture of DC. Okay. And you can see that on. Okay, perfect. Here is DC. Here's the White House. Okay. Here's Lafayette Square. And here is Ford's Theater. Walking from the White House to Ford's Theater, it's literally like a 15, 20-minute walk at most. See how close that is? And if we go up here to Lafayette Square, right here where the Freedmen's Bank building is, right here was where the Seward Mansion house once stood, but it was demolished in 1890. I'm going to give some thoughts as to why I think that happened. Here's the White House. Here's Lafayette Square. So Lincoln and Seward were basically neighbors at this point in time. Okay, so we are told that, and if okay, we can stop the share screen for right now, and then I'll get into some more. We are told that Lewis Payne Powell, that young man that I showed you, yeah, he went after William Seward's mansion. He shows up with a little box. This is the official story, and we're going to deconstruct it. We're told he went with a little box that he claimed had medicine for William Seward. William Seward was in bed on the 3rd floor resting because we are told about a week, I think it was a week or 2 weeks prior, he had got into a carriage accident. And during his carriage accident, he survived it miraculously. And his neck was all messed up, so they had to wire it and put this casing around his neck. And he was comatose in bed. This is what the official story tells us. I've later found out that he got into a carriage accident while traveling to see Edwin Stanton to deliver news that there was an assassination attempt against William Seward from overseas. There were assassins in Europe that wanted to kill him. He found it out. And so he went to Edwin Stanton to try to, like, dude, I'm scared for my life. They're trying to kill me. And it was upon returning from visiting Edwin Stanton that he got into a carriage accident. Official narrative. We're going to break this down. So William Seward is upstairs the night of April 14, 1865, recovering comatose with a wire cage around his neck area. Lewis Payne Powell knocks on the door, allegedly, and with a little box of medicine. And one of the servants, a young black man, Mr. William Bell, opens the door. And he asks, who this is. William Powell says, I'm here under Dr. Verdi's orders to deliver some medicine for Mr. Seward. And they have a discussion for a few minutes. And William Bell, we are told, doesn't really want to let him in. So at some point, Powell kind of gets a little frustrated and just pushes past him and heads directly to the third floor. Keep that in the back of your mind. He goes directly to the third floor, where he encounters one of William Seward's sons, and they were all military age children, William Seward's children. They weren't little kids, which was Frederick Seward. Frederick Seward, like, what are you doing? Like, my dad is sick, you're walking too heavy. Williams or Frederick starts to oppose, Miss Lewis Payne Powell from going upstairs. At some point, Lewis Payne Powell pulls out a gun, puts the gun to Frederick Seward's head, pulls the trigger, it misfires. So then he grabs the gun and bam, hits him over the head. Apparently so hard that brain matter comes out. Frederick Seward is unconscious. So then, at the sound of this, Fanny Seward, 19-year-old daughter of William Seward, pops her head out from the third bedroom, and in doing so, conveniently gives away Seward's location because she was hanging out with her dad while he was recovering. So he goes into the room. Inside the room is not only William Seward in bed, but the nurse, George Robinson, who is also an ex-military guy. So when he goes into the room, George Robinson tries to tackle him. Lewis Payne Powell beats the living crap out of him. And with all this commotion, Augustus Seward, another son of William Seward, another military age young man, hears the commotion. He goes in to see what's going on, and he sees so after Lewis Payne Powell knocks out George Robinson, he then jumps on top of William Seward and starts slashing at him with a 10-inch knife. Keep this in the back of your head. 10-inch knives. Boom, boom. The dude's comatose. So then Augustus Seward comes in and he sees the attack going on. He doesn't know who's who, what's going on. He gets Lewis Payne Powell off of his dad. And then apparently Lewis Payne Powell then turns his attention onto Augustus Seward, beats the shit out of him. At this point in time, Mr. George Robinson gets up, and now they both battle and succeed.
Lewis pushed past the butler at the front door.
He's beating the shit out of everyone.
He got the first son. He got the military nurse. Yeah. He got the second son. The daughter's just sitting there,
allegedly screaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not even that. So all this is happening, okay? This is I'm giving you official story details. This is not me elaborating anything. This is official story. So then, after this happens, now Lewis Payne Powell, he's like, oh shit, all right, I already stabbed William Seward. I probably killed him. He decides to bolt. As he's heading down, an armed man by the name of Emmerich Hansel meets him downstairs, and He beats the shit out of him. And then Lewis Payne Powell hops on his horse. And while this is happening, Davy Harold, Davy Harold was the one that guided Lewis Payne Powell to the Seward Mansion, because Davy Harold was very familiar with DC. Lewis Payne Powell, if you remember, was the only true Southerner of the co-conspirators. So he didn't know his way around DC at all. So Davy Harold is the one that took him and was waiting outside. And when he heard the commotion, allegedly Davy Harold, like, shit, I'm going to get out. And he bolts and heads 8 miles away from DC, where later on he somehow meets with John Wilkes Booth, and then they both escape into the barn. Remember that. But
so they had to have arranged a meetup place in advance.
This is all nonsense. I mean, how are you going to meet with someone at 8 hours? Movie. Yeah, I mean, how are you going to meet with someone?
It would be like a 1930s, like the guy runs in and slashes the first guy and he falls away, and then slashes the second guy and he falls away, and then slashes the third guy, and then makes his move, and then runs outside and his guy's gone. And it sounds ridiculous.
100%. And so Lewis Payne Powell gets on his horse and realizes Davy Harold is no longer there, because Davy Harold got scared and chickened out. Instead of going in with Powell, it would have been 2 men, to overpower everyone in that house. It would have been a lot safer. It's kind of like John Wilkes Booth going to the theater with a one-shot Derringer. It's just going to be, I'm going to take you there, but I'm going to wait outside. So
right.
During this attack too, William Bell, the young black kid that opened the door up for Lewis Payne Powell, when Powell pushed past him, he immediately ran to the General Augur's headquarters to get some help. So
sounds good.
When he comes back, he didn't find anyone at General Augur's headquarters.
Although, why would you run if both sons were there and the sergeant was there? Why not run after the guy or say, "Hey, hey guys"?
Well, we're gonna get into all that.
Okay.
And why wasn't a single shot fired? One attempted gunshot was fired, but the gun just miraculously misfired. But anyways, Powell gets out. He apparently hides in some trees for the night. This is the official story. So then he's just out in DC wandering about, I guess. And a few nights later, on the 17th, he makes his way to Mary Surratt's boarding house. He makes his way, coincidentally, at the same time that the feds raid Mary Surratt's home, and they're interrogating her, ready to cuff her and take her to jail. And Lewis Payne Powell shows up at 11 o'clock at night with allegedly bloody clothes and a pickaxe. And the feds like, "Hey, what's up, buddy? What are you doing here? Good to see you." And he tells them, allegedly, Lewis Payne Powell tells him that he was out digging ditches, and the police interrogators, "Yeah, right. Who the hell digs ditches this late at night?" So they end up taking their suspect. It's also important to know that after the first telegraphs were sent out, Edwin Stanton, Assistant Secretary of State Thomas Eckert, he was in charge of the telegraph. And the first telegraph said that the assailant of the attack on the Seward home was John Surratt Jr. And some of the here, let's see. Can you show my share screen? Here we go. Here is one of the first reward posters that were put out. And if we examine the poster, up here to the left is John Surratt Jr. In the middle is John Wilkes Booth, Davy Harold. Interesting that Lewis Payne Powell is not here. It should have been Lewis Payne Powell, right, for the Seward?
Yeah, of course.
But they have John Surratt Jr. The first telegraphs that were sent out by Stanton also named John Surratt Jr. as the suspect, which was Mary Surratt's youngest son, who was also the second um, b- below Booth. He was the second biggest co-conspirator allegedly. All right, let's look back at this picture of Lewis Payne Powell. Now that I've told you everything, one of the key points that McGowan makes is, why is there no visible scratches on Lewis Payne Powell after allegedly beating the crap out of everyone? And
with a knife, a broken gun. I mean,
not a single scratch. Not even if he beat the crap out of someone, people aren't just gonna allow you to let them beat you up. They're gonna scratch at you. They're gonna, do something.
Roughing it for a while, right? Like they don't know where he was between the time he left. He got lost. I mean, I presume he was.
Yeah, he got lost
in the woods or whatever.
Yeah, for a few days, anyways. 3 days later, he was apprehended. But and also, it's also, I want to go over the depositions that we have, and we can remove the share screen now. But so we had all these people at the Seward attack, allegedly engaging in this alleged event, and out of all the occupants in that home, we were only given 3 depositions. One deposition by William Bell, the houseboy that answered the door, that in all actuality didn't even see anything. He just claims he opened the door, and as soon as Powell pushed past him, he took off running to get help. So he didn't see any attack. That was one of the depositions. There was only 3 depositions. Even though there was nearly 10 people in this house, we only got 3 depositions, and one of them ran away in the attack. The other deposition we get is from George Robinson, the nurse that allegedly grappled with Lewis Payne Powell when he made his way inside William Seward's bed and room. And when you read his deposition, he gives you, this is how they piece the official story. They use their depositions. But when you read his account, he talks about a man coming into the room to help him against Powell. McGowan points out, that's interesting. Why does he call him a man? He was the nurse that, if he probably knew all the Seward children. Why didn't he say Augustus Seward came in? He just said a man.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he was
a man came in to help him. The other thing about Nurse Robertson was that he told the authorities that the assailant had whiskers and a mustache. These are things that I put together later on, but I'm trying to feed you little pieces.
Not in our gorgeous picture of this guy who does not. I mean, who would cover that chin up? He's just gorgeous.
Yeah, but you know who does have whiskers? Let's see if I can pull him up. Okay, let's see. If you can share, there we go. This is John Surratt Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Whiskers and a mustache. And remember, I told you the initial reports had John Surratt Jr. as the guy that attacked Seward. The initial telegraphs, even the wanted poster had John Surratt Jr. And Robinson said that the assailant had whiskers and a mustache. This is my own pieces. As I'm observing all this, I'm like, whoa, this lends more credence that none of this attack ever happened, because they later had to change the narrative to Lewis Payne Powell because he was a big dude. And on top of that, John Surratt Jr. wasn't nowhere in the area at the time. He was in New York when this attack happened.
If I recall correctly, he wasn't charged in the conspiracy, yet his mother was, and she was the only or the first woman ever executed by the United States, Mary, and she was one of those 4 hanging bodies. And I was always surprised that she got hanged, and he wasn't even, right? Didn't he get away with it?
Yeah, he got away with it because he was the second below Wilkes Booth, but he escaped over to Europe. And he has a fascinating story.
Oh, that is a fascinating story. Yeah. Yes.
and allegedly he burnt his his own biography. He was going to make a book about his harrowing life story, which is crazy.
Yeah.
He's on the run for 2 years and goes to Europe, goes to Egypt back in the
Yeah.
1860s. Fascinating story. And allegedly he burnt his own
Yeah.
papers
Which, of
before he died.
course, you know,
Before he
this is
died
handwritten stuff with ink. Like, you have to dip the pen. Like, you're not, it's not like, oh, I deleted it on my word
on
processor.
the hard
Like,
drive. Yeah. Yeah. So I and I believe it's because maybe he did have an autobiography and maybe he was talking smack about like how the whole story was nonsense
well,
because
sure.
he was touring the country after he was acquitted. So he got acquitted. He
Yeah.
was tried in civil court because now you're way out of the war has been over. There's no need for a military tribunal like all the lesser
Right.
co-conspirators were there. And even though they brought in perjured testimony and manufactured evidence against John Surratt Jr., he was acquitted 8-4. So what does that tell you? And I brought this up on our first conversation. He's acquitted when he was given a civil trial, even though they tried to stack the cards against him, and he was still acquitted 8-4. What would have happened to the lesser co-conspirators
Yeah.
had they been given a fair trial? You know, they would have been found innocent. So,
I mean, I felt
so
like
innocent blood was shed. For
his
sure.
mom was only that she only hosted. So she owned a boarding house, and that's supposedly where the conspirators gathered. But her only reason for that was their relationship with her son, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So I would think that the evidence against her for actually being an integral part of the conspiracy would be less, because she
Right.
wasn't at the scene of the crime.
Yeah, I definitely
Oh, did you do that?
definitely agree. Yeah,
Sorry. Okay.
I got rid of it because I don't need it right now. But I mean, I want to get into why I want to make my case as to why I don't think anything transpired, anything remotely
Yes,
through the
do
official
tell.
story. I just gave you the official story
Yeah.
in as good a detail as I could, because to understand the official story, it gets tricky. Putting this face with that face and that face. So some people may want to listen to the official story, go back to, you know, when I first started it and listen to it a few times over and over.
No, that
Because
was a
it took,
great description of the official story of the it's Seward?
yeah, the Seward Mansion
Yeah.
attack. Yep. So I've had to go over it so many times just to make sense in my head. And now I just try to give you the best rendition that I could based on the official narrative. So then I just gave you the problems with George Robinson's deposition, the nurse that gave his description, in where he later said that it was the guy that attacked was had whiskers and a mustache. But later on, by the time the trial came about, he said that absolutely positively it was George or Lewis Payne Powell, always clean shaven Powell. So, but people don't realize that Sergeant Robinson, was later made into a sergeant. He was given $5,000 in cash considerations, which $5,000 back then was a shit ton of money. And he was also gifted the knife that was used in the Seward Mansion attack. He was basically pushed into hero status. So just change your story a little bit, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a sure, like,
yeah.
He didn't when you fail and they still make you a hero, that's a good tell. That's
Good
still a
tell.
tell.
So that's the second deposition that was used in court. The third deposition came from Augustus Seward, the son that was sleeping in one of the rooms and came in after the commotion. Problem with his deposition is that when he comes in, he gives an account of what he saw, and he says that when he first came into the room, he mistook his dad for Lewis Payne Powell. He mistook the nurse for Lewis Payne Powell. None of these characters look anything alike. But in his deposition, he's confusing everyone, and it's his damn dad. How in the world do you... William Seward was a little guy. He was only like 5 foot nothing. Lewis Payne Powell was 6'1", super muscular young kid. A young kid 6'1", and a little old man. How in the hell? And this is your dad. You're Augustus Seward, and this is your deposition. And you can't tell who from who. These are the depositions that were given in court. So McGowan breaks down their depositions and says, none of this shit makes any sense. And so he leans that the whole affair was manufactured. Now, I've kind of expanded on this theory quite a bit in doing further research. And yeah, I don't believe the Seward Mansion attack. And someone like James Perloff believes that it actually happened. I don't believe it. And here's why. When Lewis Payne Powell gets on top of Seward and starts stabbing at him with a 10-inch knife, he can't kill a guy that's comatose. That doesn't make any damn sense. But the official story tells you he was lucky that he had that brace on his neck. That protected his vitals. That protected his carotid. So he survived by the hand of God, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, it makes sense why he would conveniently have this carriage accident. It would go in with the story, you know?
And why, if you have a 10-inch knife, why attack the only protected place?
Good observation, because that's the other thing that I've talked about. Lewis Payne Powell was the only true Southern boy. My thoughts on Lewis Payne Powell was, if he was a true Southern boy, this kid knew how to kill, not just people, but he knew how to kill animals, you know, and stuff like that. He probably knew how to skin things. How the hell, if his mission was to kill Seward, didn't he pull one of his techniques, like make him bleed out in any other way?
And he was in the military.
Yeah, so to me, it's completely preposterous. But I've heard this because I'm so obsessed with all things Lincoln Assassination. I'll often listen to other people give their version of events, and I just laugh. I'm like, this is so stupid that you believe it. Because I've heard official historians talk about when Lewis Payne Powell allegedly is attacking William Seward. I heard one historian with a straight face say this, that it was chaos in the house when Lewis Payne Powell was stabbing at Seward. Seward wrapped himself in some sheets, and so that made him a hard target for Lewis Payne Powell. So as he's stabbing,
but he was comatose.
Yeah. And as he's stabbing, Seward is moving his body like this. And it's like a cartoon, you know, in the cartoons when they're trying to stab
yeah.
It's like doink, doink, doink. I'm like, and I started laughing. I'm like, that is such a cartoon, and you're saying it with a straight
it does
face.
sound cartoonish. And I'm looking at like the wiki entries and stuff, and what you're saying is the official story. And to say that there's chaos in the house, there's only what would you do if someone you were loved and wanted to protect was in the house, and there's like 5 people in the house or more, and there's some lunatic headed towards that person? Do you just run around screaming, or do you all pile into that room and dogpile the guy?
Yeah, and I told you in the official recounting of the story that Annie Seward gave away Lewis Payne Powell's position, or I'm sorry, William Seward's position in the room. Funny how none of the depositions ever mentioned Fannie Seward. None of the depositions
in the room.
Allegedly, maybe
right.
This is what I mean. If the whole thing was manufactured, you're just adding little things to make the story more realistic. And one of the things that doesn't get brought up, and McGowan brought up, was how the hell did Lewis Payne Powell know to make his way up to the 3rd floor? Immediately. It's a massive house. It's a mansion, but he immediately goes up to the 3rd. How did he know that? And that's a good question. That, like, how did he know that? And I want to go over some of the things that I have uncovered to expand on McGowan's theory that this thing never happened, so I can try to make a solid case. And anyone listening to this, even if you believe in the Seward Mansion attack, I'm going to make you have to answer some of these questions, and maybe you will be converted over into believing that it was all made up. It's interesting that the house is raised in 1890.
Yeah, because the house that I'm trying to find a layout of it to see if there were bedrooms on the 2nd floor, perhaps. And they in New York, It's
They
a
have one in the house.
historical monument. Like his house
Well,
in New York is historical. It's preserved.
yeah. But the one where this infamous attack
Yeah,
connected
that
to
one
the Lincoln
isn't.
assassination, they they destroyed it in 1890. My gut feeling tells me in similar things that happen today, when you want to get rid of something, like in the Uvalde school shooting, what happened to that school a few months afterwards?
Oh, what
Took
about
into
S
the
Hook?
ground.
S Hook also.
Yep, S Hook as well. Anytime some of these incidents happen, it's, you know what, we don't want too many more questions asked. Let's
Yeah.
just knock this sucker down.
Yeah.
So my theory is that they knocked it down. Here's another interesting thing.
Yeah, in 1890, I mean, it's not like they were building skyscrapers or something 100 years later.
Yeah, I mean a mansion. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
of
historic,
historical value.
historical value. So let's go back. Here's a illustration of what it may have looked
It's
like
so
back then.
cute.
But I went there to DC a few months back, and this is the
Wow, the only thing left
only
is a
thing that
plaque.
a plaque, and it says on this site, Commodore John Rogers built an elegant house in 1881. In it, on April 14, 1865, an attempt was made to assassinate Seward, Secretary of State, by one of the conspirators who murdered Abraham Lincoln the same night. And so there's the tiny little mention. And what exists now is that bank, like a big bank building that I showed you. And let's go back to this right here, to the map. Okay. Here's the White House. The Seward house was right here.
Yeah.
Another key observation that McGowan makes is this was days after the Civil War had officially ended. So all of DC was in party mode for many, many days, all night long. And so you can imagine there was probably military all over DC, and everyone's in good spirits, happy times. How is it that no one heard the commotion going on?
Yeah.
Especially when you're next door to the White House. You have to assume there was probably armed guards around here. So when William Bell leaves to run and help, and he returns empty-handed because he couldn't find any help, that doesn't make any sense. He should have ran into someone at some point.
Well, who was that guy? The guy in the hallway.
Emmerich Hansel was an armed guard that just made his way to the Seward home. But he was just making his way up there, and he just ran into Powell, and poor guy just got his ass beat for no reason, just for showing up. It's so. This is what I'm glad you're laughing, because this is how ridiculous the story is. But this is a key observation. It's right there on Lafayette Square, the Seward Mansion home, and no one around is found to aid in this. But you know who did make it? Who was the first people on scene?
Oh.
The first people on scene were Edwin Stanton, Secretary of War, and Assistant Secretary of War, Thomas Eckert. Thomas Eckert were both there and attended Seward. So the next question is, why in the hell did they go here?
Time as the Lincoln assassination attempt?
Yes.
And I think Stanton is the isn't he the favorite suspect of the
I think I kind of liken him to like a Donnie Rumsfeld or a Cheney type of character.
He's in on it, but he's not. He doesn't have his hands dirty.
Definitely moving things around. But it's also curious, why did, instead of going to see Seward, why didn't they go to see Lincoln?
Right. And that is a Rumsfeld kind of thing. Like, I'm sorry, I have to abandon my post to carry stretchers around on the front lawn. It's like,
the Pentagon.
Yeah. You need to, you can't, that's dereliction of duty. He should have been court-martialed or whatever. I mean, it wasn't military, as defense secretary, but that should have been an actionable thing to do. And this sounds similar, that they're like, okay, well,
so
I'm just not going to be where I need to be.
I'm trying to lay down.
Because the Secretary of State is third in line, right?
Yeah.
Or is it the
I,
House? No, I think it might be Congress. But I remember when General Haig, Alexander Haig, I believe was Secretary of State when Reagan was shot. And I think he said, I'm in command here. And that was like a famous thing because so these guys are pretty, the Secretary of State is a very high position.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'm trying to lay down super reasonable doubt as to these
Yeah,
events, and so
definitely.
that's a curious thing that the people that I believe were the masterminds behind Lincoln getting killed, it makes sense that they wouldn't go directly to Fort Theater. Let's get our story straight. Let's all plan it out.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Let's
you
meet
see
at
what I'm
Sewer's
saying?
house.
Yeah. And this is why they came up with Jonathan Surratt Jr. as the suspect, because
Yeah.
they didn't have their stuff really
Yeah.
all together. And it wasn't until much later that, oh, you know what? It wasn't John Surratt Jr. It was Lewis Payne Powell, who we just found, with a pickaxe at 11 o'clock at night digging ditches. Get the hell out of here. It's comical. But here's another interesting piece that McGowan and I, from what I understand, Dave McGowan was planning to write more on the Lincoln assassination. So maybe some of the things that I'll bring up are things that he would have found out on his own as well. But I mean, we'll never know, unfortunately. So I try to expand along his same way of thinking and lines. Don Thomas is another great Lincoln assassination researcher.
Yes.
And Don Thomas inadvertently corroborates Dave McGowan. Inadvertently. So Don Thomas has written a couple of books. One of them is Why Lincoln Had to Die and Why Booth Had to Die. One of the interesting things Don Thomas uncovers is in the John Wilkes Booth diary, there were so many redactions and alterations. The FBI admitted this. And so that's one of his key things.
Oh, yeah.
And Don Thomas is a great researcher. However, and this is not me poo-pooing on him, I just have a very huge difference of opinions on his theory on the Seward Mansion attack. He believes the Seward attack happened, but I think his own research just verifies McGowan's findings inadvertently, and this is how. In Don Thomas's book, Why Booth Had to Die, he dedicates some time into the Seward Mansion attack and how Lewis Payne Powell was framed. And he proves this through official documents, primary source documents from the National Archives. He shows that when Lewis Payne Powell was apprehended, there was a hat on the scene, supposedly, and a gun at the Seward Mansion attack. Remember the gun that was used to bash
broke.
over?
Yeah, that broke.
That didn't fire.
Yeah.
That gun was a Confederate gun. The Confederates were their gun making skills. They didn't have the money that the Union had, so it was a cheaper Confederate gun that was left at the scene allegedly that didn't fire. When he was apprehended and the cops booked him on when he was caught at Mary Surratt's home, in the booking papers, they said they recovered a gun and a hat and a clean gray coat. But we were told that his original coat had blood stains and the hat had blood stains, but this coat was clean. And in the pockets of his coat, when he was apprehended on the 17th, they found a Union gun.
What?
And they found cartridges that belonged to the other gun. And they had to erase that. So he was clearly framed. They were planting evidence on this kid. And this is where Don Thomas is like, he's clearly framed. I'm like, you just proved McGowan's theory that it just adds to it. Why would you have to frame someone? Why would you have to plant evidence for someone that you know is guilty? Why do you have to plant it? Why do you frame this kid? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that right there, Don Thomas's exquisite research. It's great research because he uncovered that Lewis Payne Powell was clearly framed
Yeah.
unequivocally framed, 100%. Why would you have to plant evidence again?
Yeah. So
You never
why?
plant evidence.
So what does he think really happened?
Don Thomas believes the official story that the Seward mansion.
Oh,
Yeah,
so he proves that the evidence was planted, but he thinks he was still guilty.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And now that I've laid down my case, you're like, yeah, it just adds to the story being manufactured and fake. It's also convenient too that William Seward gets into that carriage accident, a couple of weeks prior to this. It's
sitting duck.
Yeah, it just adds to the nonsense of this entire story. And I think this is why the story doesn't really get talked about that much, because there's so many holes to it. Again, how did Lewis Payne Powell know exactly to go to the third floor? And here's another interesting tidbit. While Lewis Payne Powell was in prison, he was allowed to have a knife, presumably to allow him to kill himself.
Yeah.
And guess who was babysitting him this whole time?
Who?
Assistant Secretary of War Thomas Eckert. Shouldn't he be doing Assistant Secretary of War type of duties instead of being the Lewis Payne Powell's babysitter?
Yeah.
And to me, because later you'll hear other people talk about, well, Lewis Payne Powell confessed to Thomas Eckert. This is what we have to believe happened. We don't know if that happened.
Right.
For all we know, Lewis Payne Powell could have been talking shit. Like, why am I?
Please. Sorry.
I'm a patsy. He could have been screaming that from the rooftop. We'll never know, know the truth. But it is curious why Thomas Eckert was babysitting this guy instead of doing his duties as Assistant Secretary of War. When in the history of the United States has that ever happened?
Well, Donald Rumsfeld was carrying.
I'm glad you brought. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what appeared to my mind when I'm hearing Thomas Eckert doing these weird little things. I'm like, yeah, that's just like Donnie Rums collecting debris and putting people on stretchers at the Pentagon building. It's complete and utter nonsense, and
especially when they're in crisis.
Yeah. So I hope I've sowed some serious doubt as to this event known as the Seward Mansion attack.
And what it does is it implicates everybody who says that the attack happened, starting with Seward.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just makes the whole story like, what can you believe?
Yeah. Well,
if these major things, that's what McGowan says in his book. McGowan goes, if these big pieces, if the Seward Mansion never happened, why in the hell should we believe what happened at Ford's Theater then?
That was supporting the official story of the motive, that they were going to bring the whole government down or whatever. And it was what I would call haystacking. So haystacking is when you do a bunch of stuff so nobody knows who the real target is. Obviously, Lincoln was the target for financial reasons or whatever.
Yeah, and then you have the people that were involved in the conspiracy implicating themselves as targets. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh no, I wasn't a code. Like, Seward saying,
I was in a coma getting my knife.
What are you talking about? Yeah,
come on.
I have my alibi. I almost died.
I have 15 different alibis right now. Like, I was in a coma. I was wiggling around. I was, getting my throat slit. Like, 5 people were getting their ass beat in my room.
William Seward. Well, when you hear official people talking about William Seward, they'll always talk about he was super close with Lincoln. They used to have talks and long walks together, and they look like the odd couple, because here you have a tiny little old man with 6'4" Lincoln and blah blah blah. But and what people will sometimes not talk about was how William Seward didn't like Lincoln early on, but apparently they mended their differences and became friends. This is what we're told. But the fact that they admit that William Seward didn't like Lincoln, he viewed him as a scumbag. You have a little bit of motive there. And then the other interesting thing about William Seward is that even if you read his Wikipedia, you go down some of his information on there, they talk about how he would sometimes brag about how much power he had. Seward
This is
basically like
Seward because
this is
Stanton was
William,
kind of like
same
sketchy
way.
like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were all this way. Maybe it was a different time, but William Seward would sometimes brag that if someone looked at him funny, he could have them arrested on the spot. Like that he was a little slime bag.
Mhm.
So, but the official narrative people will paint him out to be, no, he was a good guy. He came up with Thanksgiving. He was against slavery. He poor old little Seward. That's the version that they will feed you. And the version that I have of Mr. Seward is that he was just like any of these other elites. They're all scummy. They may do a nice thing or two from here
Yeah,
and here,
of
but
course.
greed
I mean,
is the
that's
biggest
propaganda.
motivator.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and then when you realize,
And power.
Seward, yeah. Apparently, Seward, towards the end of his life, made a comment to someone saying that he kind of regrets surviving the Lewis Payne Powell attack because people will forget him.
Oh
In the
my
historical record,
gosh.
he goes,
Oh
and
my gosh.
he would have been a martyr for the cause. This is allegedly what he said later on in life. And I know I covered Marcus Aurelius, and I know you covered Marcus Aurelius. But one of the things that Marcus Aurelius points out in relation to this is how Stoicism teaches you to worry about the moment. Don't worry about the what's going to be in the future, whatever, because people will forget you, and the people that remember you now will die, and then the people
who remember the people who remember you will die, and then
you will have forgotten. And that's probably what William Seward, in those comments that he made later on in life, was where he was worried about his reputation and stuff. But don't worry, William Seward, I honored you by talking about your Thanksgiving in Alaska. Little details.
I have a biography of Patrick Henry. And I was shocked to find, I don't know if it was in the prologue or it's in the body of the book or what, that Thomas Jefferson went out of his way, and we know Churchill did this, but he went out of his way to write his own legacy and to diminish Patrick Henry's, because he was afraid Patrick Henry would go down as the greatest founder in our history. And I'm a huge Patrick Henry fan, but Thomas Jefferson obviously is the Churchill of that event.
Yeah.
And what surprised me is that they really took the time and even degraded themselves, in my opinion, lacked integrity in order to view them. And that history viewed them at all. Yeah. Wow. So it doesn't surprise me that he thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to, if you don't mind, I want to give you some Lincoln and Kennedy
JFK,
similarities.
right? Yeah, I wanted to hear about this because I remember always, even growing up, thinking JFK and Lincoln they're like any president elected in the 20th year was assassinated, or is there an attempt assassination? So I remember that with Reagan, they're like, oh, the 20-year curse. And they did try to kill him immediately.
Yeah.
Of course, who would put a CIA director as the VP if you don't want to get shot? But it's like when Hillary was going to be VP or whatever. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's like, you would definitely not want Hillary Clinton to be, your wingman, just in case she got greedy. But yeah, so that was it though. They always drew that parallel, but I didn't know if there were more.
Right.
So
let's do it. So you can hear a lot of these things, but some of them are completely manufactured and or exaggerated a bit. I want to give you some of the factual stuff that you can verify and brag to your friends. Some of the crazy ones were that Lincoln was put into office in 1860, JFK in 1960, like 100 years apart.
Oh, it was
which is
exactly
wild.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's also crazy that Lincoln had been in Monroe, Maryland, and JFK allegedly was inside Maryland, Monroe. All right, that was a bad joke.
That's definitely true, though. Definitely true.
But another one is that when they were assassinated, they were both preceded by vice presidents with the last name of Johnson.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. I did
Um,
notice that. I was like, oh, another Johnson. Like it really is a club that we're not in.
yeah, and the crazy thing is, Andrew Johnson was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson was born in 1908. I don't know if there's
Interesting.
anything to make of. It's just coincidences,
Yeah.
super crazy coincidences. But and let's see, and I think I mentioned this last time, but one of my favorite ones is Lincoln was killed at Ford's Theater. JFK was killed in a Ford Lincoln.
Whoa.
Yeah, that one is
That's kind of
wild.
uncool. Like that sounds like they just did that on purpose.
Yeah, we're gonna plan to take out JFK.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a Ford Lincoln.
I mean, you got to, right?
It's super wild. The other thing is, um, in these official narratives, we're told that the suspects, in the case of Booth and uh, Oswald, they both escape or so Booth escapes the theater and goes into basically a tobacco warehouse, a barn, you can call it a warehouse. Oswald allegedly killed JFK from a warehouse and goes into a theater. So yeah, it's not great, but something. The other thing is both were obviously JFK and Lincoln were both shot in the head. And in both situations, their assassins initially escaped and were killed prior to trial. So,
And it weren't
another.
both of their wives present?
What do you mean?
Wasn't well, Jackie O was definitely there.
Oh yeah, yeah. They were both. Jackie was right there, presumably holding hands with JFK, and we are told that Lincoln and Mary Todd were holding hands when this
Seems
occurred
unlikely.
and transpired.
Unless he was just trying to keep her in her seat because she was a nut job.
Yeah,
Say it about
if
Mary.
you missed part one, I gave some interesting thoughts on Mary Todd Lincoln.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you missed our first one, I really recommend checking that.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
one
I'll
out.
put it in the show notes for sure.
I went into
Well,
super
it's too
detail,
late now.
and I don't know if I made you rethink Lincoln with some of my takes,
Yeah,
either today or
I
the
hadn't
last time
even
around.
thought to think about it. And here's what is conflicting to me because I think that Lincoln is overly like heroized because he basically suspended the Constitution to preserve the Union and change the whole thing. Like we have no, I feel like they're always like I don't even like what Jefferson did with Marbury v. Madison, where he the Supreme Court was found to have the power to judge whether congressional action was unconstitutional or not. And in my mind, there was no FBI, there was no DOJ, there's no enforcement mechanism in the Constitution for congressional law. It has to be enforced by the states. If you can't turn the army against the people or anything. So, so for me, the whole Civil War and everything just nullified state nullification, which is what I think would have kept the Constitution, the Bill of Rights alive and well. So I'm not a fan of Lincoln. I don't think he had any right to do that. I think he tricked the South into doing that. So I would never have thought that they killed him on purpose. And I feel like when they do, when you do kill somebody, say it's JFK or Lincoln, you really go back and make them a hero. You get to do that. And they do that to make it look like, of course, the establishment loves him, whatever, but he's dead. So you get to do that. And it's harmless. So for me, I just never even considered it, but of course it makes perfect sense. The lone nut thing is out of the question. And these guys, see, what I was trying to do is look up like what happened to these guys later. Did they really benefit? I actually don't think they did. They were probably played.
Yeah. I think there's bigger puppet masters. You know, these are just the faces, but there's always bigger names behind all these things and events
Yeah.
that we will never know of. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like when you see a Jeff Epstein, that's the face we get put out.
oh, I
But
know
come on.
that makes me crazy when people are
Yeah,
like, and he did this and he financed that and he was doing this. And I'm like, I don't think he's doing anything ever. He's just the
yeah,
face job so that the 500 people or 100 people or 5 people that he is representing or countries that he is representing are completely shielded. And the more you put on him, on his face, the less you're actually looking behind the scenes. But
yeah.
the McGowan thing, I don't know if you said this. I know we talked a little bit about the financial interests in McGowan's theory, but I think did he actually say it was the Rothschild banking interests? Because they
So,
were already powerful by then.
oh yeah, I mean, McGowan hints that he thinks the whole conspiracy was probably both sides were probably involved to some certain degree, because a lot of the Northerners will say it was a Confederate plot. That's what even the people that push the official narrative, and then they'll complete, and then some of the Southerners will say, you know, they completely absolved the South. McGowan was like, you know, it's probably like today where both sides are behind these things, big money interest. You know, like
Yeah.
Vietnam. Vietnam was a pointless war where so many innocent lives on both sides with the Vietnamese or Americans died. And all for what? For commercial interest. They don't care about you and I. They don't
Yeah.
give a shit.
I'm reading a book called Syria that Jeremy Kuzmarov, whom I really like him. He's of Covert Action Magazine. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but was really a great professor, and he was teaching in history like the role of the CIA in American history. And I think he got fired like numerous times. So now he writes books which are great. He's such a good researcher and everything. And one of the things that it said was this Operation Timber Sycamore, or whatever it was, that got armed the ISIS and Al Nusra and stuff in Syria. That one of the things that happened was, I think they recycled, or like they bought old Soviet weapons from former Warsaw Pact countries and sold those to the jihadists, and that got the Warsaw Pact countries to buy more stuff from the US defense manufacturers. And when you look at that, and you see all the Middle Eastern, all the wars, everything that we do, Venezuela is going to be a good example. I, so yes, maybe that's for the oil interests, and the bank, the financing. It's just, I always think of the military industrial complex as energy, finance, and defense, those industries. And they are creating, it's just like the vaccine or whatever, they're creating markets for their products. They're just creating markets for their products, and their products kill people, and they have to kill people or get people to kill each other in order to sell bullets or healthcare or whatever. And it's insane to me, but it seems to me like it's that simple. And it's hard for me to get my mind around people who really don't care about other people at all, like have no morality. I guess if you just are positive there's no God, or actually think that there's an afterlife that rewards this kind of thing, you would do it. But I just feel like, eh, are they sociopaths? I mean, who?
That's
But
probably it right there. They don't
yeah.
give a shit.
And that's
They
how
just,
they get to the top, because they could do
yeah,
that the whole time, which I could never do. I can't
with no
even get to the top
shame,
of podcasting.
with no shame, no remorse. It's
Yeah.
a mentality that the average person, people with morals, we can't relate to. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just different.
And they like it that way because
Yeah.
it keeps us from doing stuff like that, from
Right. Right.
giving them competition.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, God,
go ahead.
I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything from those two
No,
things.
I covered the Seward Mansion attack, and I hopefully I was able to first give you the official story and make you visualize it, and then later point out why I think it's silly. And I'm with David McGowan that nothing ever happened. There's too many parts. Lewis Payne Powell
Yeah,
being framed. That's a huge
absolutely.
part. The fact that they tore down the house a short
Yeah,
time after, that
yeah.
doesn't make any damn sense. And then when you break down the official story and the depositions, none of the depositions making any cohesive sense.
The
One of the
events,
sons mistaking Powell
yeah,
with his dad. Like, how in the hell does that happen?
yeah.
None of it makes sense.
And the events seem impossible. Like, I watch movies like that, I'm like, why is each person the only way this guy can beat everybody up is that they're only coming at him one at a time. And that
Yeah,
just would never happen in real life. Like, it just
yeah.
would never happen. Even if you were hurt, you would have to be knocked unconscious. And these guys all seem to recover fine. Like, that's the part that to me is just absolutely impossible.
And not a scratch.
And I was following some of the official narrative. Maybe it was on Wiki, and they said that because Harold, the guy who was waiting outside,
Davy Harold. Yep.
abandoned him, like
Yeah.
wasn't there anymore, and he didn't know his way around, and he was literally sauntering on this horse, like just walking slowly away on a horse. Like I think that's what it
Yeah,
says.
and then some accounts will say he was hiding in a tree.
Yeah, I mean, and if you are, that's actually you would definitely get scratches. Like if you're gonna climb around in a tree, and
I know,
but no, but he wasn't. He got a
hear that.
horse. No,
Yeah, I just hear that and I just laugh.
yeah,
Like none of it makes sense, man.
no,
It really doesn't. I mean, again,
no.
Davy Harold shows up with him. Here's the house, buddy. You're on your own.
Yes,
And
and
then he
what
takes
you
off.
made me realize that how important that event is, because if you take that away, what is first of all, you can't you really wouldn't have any basis to kill all those other people. There had to have been some kind of conspiracy because Booth couldn't have done it by himself.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Seward thing was the linchpin of the whole theory that these Southerners all got together and were trying to bring down the government at one time. So it
Yeah,
didn't look
and
like just trying to get rid of Lincoln so that you could get your guys in. And
yeah, and
and
then
those guys did remain and still had that punitive reconstruction. So you didn't need to take those guys out because they weren't going to do the same thing as Lincoln, and they didn't.
yeah, and 160 years later, this is why I feel you don't get taught the entire
No.
story. And I feel the entire story is fascinating. I just don't believe any of it. It's a
Yeah.
fascinating tale. And that's why and this is why I want people to understand I listen to lectures on this stuff. I listen to podcasts that have massive followings talking about even the Seward Mansion attack, and I start laughing. I'm like, if you're gonna tell the story, at least say it accurately. But then they start making up this
Yeah.
and that. They start giving it their own little twist.
Embellish
That's why
it.
I started off giving you the official narrative. This
Yeah.
is exactly how the official story is. Here's why. Here's all the things wrong with it. You know what I mean? Because so many people will make things up. I heard this podcast that other podcasters in our corners platform this guy. He's a Southern guy. Someone mentioned it. I'm like, ooh, this guy's talking about Lincoln.
Yeah.
Hear him on. And then this person, these people have a large YouTube channel. And people in the comments are like, oh my gosh, I love this Lincoln stuff. I love this Lincoln stuff. And I'm listening to it. I'm open. Let's hear what you have to say. And this guy was pulling stuff out of his behind, and it was pissing me off.
Yeah, because you knew the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Like you're yelling at the TV.
Yeah, I'm like, why are you making stuff up? Where did you get that information from?
Yeah.
This is why I try to tell people, here's the official narrative. And here's why I think, here's all the things wrong with it. And you decide whether you want to still believe the official story or not. But don't make things up.
Yeah, you've probably been exposed to all of the evidence, like whether it's Don Thomas or McGowan or the official narrative or the FBI stuff.
When
so
I
like
visited,
there's nothing out there that you probably didn't come across your vision.
Well, and I visited the sites. Like, remember I showed you that?
Oh, yes, that's right. That was amazing.
I drove or I walked by the old Seward Mansion house, and I'm like, dude, it's just right. The White House is right freaking there.
Yeah.
And no heard this commotion, screaming.
Yeah.
You have to assume that Fanny,
And they
um,
had definitely had military on the in the streets then. They for
it,
sure, like, I've read that in the
this
official.
that's a massive key to this. Like
Yeah,
it's a celebration time, and no one heard this, and it's right there in
yeah,
Lafayette Square.
yeah.
It's not like it's in on the outskirts of
And the
town
door
near
was
nothing.
open. He left the
Yeah.
door open, I think.
It's yeah, the whole story. This is what I mean.
And
I'm not just saying that. You know, I tend to lean just like Rathbone when I named Rathbone as the most likely shooter.
yeah,
That's how I feel about the Seward Mansion attack ever happening. Not
no way.
very likely at all. Yeah,
And, um, just the biggest tell on the whole assassination thing not being, these people being railroaded, whatever, there was absolutely no justification for a military trial at all. Like, that was really, really bad.
yeah,
And I mistakenly said Powell had been in the military. He joined the military after. I see some timeline of his thing, and he joined. This says he. Oh, okay. No, he was in the military. He was in the military, but
yeah. He was. He
yeah.
he,
But
he was only.
regardless, it wasn't a military crime.
Yeah, the war had already been over,
Yeah,
and
he
this is what a
wasn't
lot
doing
of these
it.
official narrative pushers
Yeah.
they'll say it with a straight face, like, "Yeah, I'm glad Mary Surratt got hung. Who
Oh my
cares?" You know,
gosh.
and they like cheer this on. And Lewis Payne Powell, "Yeah, I'm glad he got the gallows."
Yeah.
And in my mind, all these people were patsies. This
And
was a
they.
manufactured event, and you had to. Here's another little known fact that people don't realize. Soon after the assassination, I believe over 2,000 people were arrested. 2,000
Wow.
people. 2,000 people. And then they all whittled it down to just those co-conspirators.
And didn't Johnson fire Stanton when he found out later that like there had been this appeal on behalf of Mary Surratt, and so Johnson went down in history as being the first person to execute a woman, and he would have given her a pardon.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole trial is um it's a funny.
Not sure I believe that, but
Yeah, well, there's so many elements. Even the attorneys that were supposed to be representing the co-conspirators, there was a few of them, but Doster was the leading one, and he seems to be compromised. But then there was another younger guy. He was in his 30s. That seemed to be the only one that wasn't compromised completely, because the other guys, even some of the prosecutors, some of the statements that they made during the tribunals were real good points, but then later they were rewarded. So maybe they were rewarded, like, all right, don't go too hard on them.
yeah.
One of the closing statements by leading prosecutor Doster was something along the lines that saying, no, Powell, I'm defending him, but he was definitely the guy that committed the atrocious attack on the Seward home. What the hell, dude? That's your guy.
Yeah.
Why are you
Yeah,
saying
no,
this?
you can't do that. I've noticed that too. They did that to a lot
Yes.
of people on January 6th. It's like, I stipulate he was there and did everything you said he did.
Yeah.
But we just
But
want mercy. It's like nobody did anything. What are you talking about?
yes.
That makes me crazy.
That's the whole thing. But the one attorney, I can't remember his name. He was a younger guy in his 30s. When you try to do any information on him, he just died a short time later.
Oh, yeah.
Very little is known about him. They don't even know his full name and age. And McGowan suggests that he was probably the only one that wasn't completely compromised, even
Yeah.
within the defense attorneys. So yeah, the military tribunals were a complete joke. I think I mentioned last time, but they, as part of evidence, they introduced a cipher letter that was allegedly recovered from a river, but had no water damage. And then some of the witnesses at the tribunal, at the sham of a trial, one of them, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but one of them ran a school for perjured witnesses. This was his job. He ran a school for perjured witnesses, and he was one of the leading witnesses for the tribunals.
Oh my gosh.
It is laughable, and it wouldn't be. I mean, I guess it shouldn't be funny because people got hung and
Yeah.
wrongfully executed. But I mean, it was entire sham of a
And
trial.
Lincoln's assassins were not the actual conspirators, got away with it and probably benefited from it and changed the course of our history. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? That was such an important turning point, and that was really the end of the American experiment. I would say that switching from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution 10 years out was the beginning of the end, but the end of the end, I think, was Reconstruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
very interesting. So what else are you working on? What are we going to talk about next time?
Well, we can talk about whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I'm
Today
sure
I have a
something
show.
crazy will happen and we can talk
Yeah.
about that when it happens. But yeah, oh, you have a show today?
I have a show, yeah, here very soon with
Oh,
Seven
okay, let me
Seas.
let you go.
And we are
What are
going
you
to be
doing?
talking about life touch photos.
What
Life
is
touch
that? Like
photos
AI
does all the
looking stuff?
school well, Life Touch Photos
Oh,
takes all the school photos, and Seven Seas has gone down that rabbit hole. And when you
wow.
realize Epstein, Leon Black are all tied to Life Touch Photos, you're like, what the hell, dude?
Really?
And once you find that, once you hear what we have to say, you're probably going to be like, yeah, I don't want my kids taking school pictures anymore.
How does he do his research?
He goes
He
deep.
just knows
He
how to do
goes
it. I
deep.
asked Johnny Vedmore that question once, and he said,
I don't trust that guy.
yeah,
Johnny
well, I
Vedmore.
mean, if you lay down with dogs, but every time I talk to him, he's got good stuff. I'm
I've got,
super skeptical of
yeah.
everyone, but I also like I feel like I don't cancel. I just talk to people and you can judge for yourself.
You have a more nice and forgiving approach. I'm a little bulldog.
Well, I'm non-confrontational. I'm a
I'll burn
female.
bridges.
I don't want to know. I don't and
I'll
I don't
burn the ships.
yeah, I don't like to be judged and canceled and all of that. Like I hate that YouTube I can't get commercials. I'm like I don't
Yep.
tell you, I wasn't going through the commercials and being like, "Well, I don't approve of Roundup," which I don't, but like I just like we don't hold each other responsible. That's like a huge, huge responsibility. Why don't we just all not be responsible for making the judgments and you make the judgments yourself? But yeah, I mean, maybe that's lazy. But
Yeah.
anyway, but what Johnny said was that used to do Napster. So he used to be able to reach into people's computers. Remember Napster? I don't know anything about
Yeah,
it, but
yeah, I remember Napster. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
when you wanted music, you
yeah,
would
you could
get
reach into
that.
somebody's computer and pull it out.
Mm,
So, anyway, he said that kind of thing was um, helpful in doing research, but I really don't know. I'm always surprised when people do research that I can't do with like one, like, gee, what's up with life source or whatever. And if it doesn't come out, I'm like, oh well, I don't know.
yeah.
But some people can just go deeper, and I've asked about like how to get into the dark web, the deep web, and I immediately got like a thing like the FBI is going to come to your house right now. Like you are on a bad, bad, bad site. I was
Please.
like, I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm doing.
No
I'm not
thanks.
doing this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
So, well,
you don't
I'm
want.
going to let you go then. I'm super sorry I kept you over.
Oh, you're
Uh,
fine.
okay, awesome. Hang on a sec. I want to make sure we're all uploaded and I am going to say goodbye. How can people find you?
You can find me by searching What is Truth Podcast by Weezy. I should be able to pop up on your favorite podcast player. If you do follow me, please help me with some of those reviews. And if you enjoy the content, caveat as well, you can also find me on Rumble and Odyssey. I never plug YouTube because I don't like YouTube. But caveat, if this is the first time you listening to me here, I I made sure I watched my language. I do get a little wild. I do drop a lot of
A
F-bombs.
a little salty on your own show.
I want to make people be aware of that so you're like, "Oh man, I didn't know I signed
Yeah,
up for
don't listen
this."
to it when your
So,
kids are in the car. That's
yeah,
all.
don't do that, or if you find that offensive, I may not be the show for you. I just want to be
Yeah.
clear so
I
people
don't
don't
find it
get upset.
offensive, but I get complaints because people say they want their kids to listen because I have like the libertarian stuff, constitutional
Yeah.
stuff. So I try not to do it. But as the daughter of literally a butcher and a sailor and a truck driver, like my father is those things, an iron worker, whatever. I have a beautiful, beautiful grasp of the the vulgar side. But anyway,
A colorful repertoire.
I think so. I think, and it's actually a sign of intelligence that they're like a sign of ignorance. It's not. People with
Some
a
of the
really
comments
good,
I've gotten
yeah.
from people is like, man, I really liked you, and then I see this other side of you. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's actually that other side that's how
Is
I
the
am.
real me. I think that's a
This
Protestant thing.
yeah,
Like
this
Catholics,
version.
yeah, you're allowed to use vulgarity. You're not allowed to curse or swear. Not allowed to say damn or swear to God or anything, but you can use vulgarity. Anyway. Well, dear, yes, everyone, please be warned. Wheezy is not for everyone.
No, no.
But
Enter at your own risk. But you may like the content, you may like
yeah,
the material. So
but
if you're not easily offended,
yeah,
I also cover controversial topics. So if
yeah,
you're not easily offended, my
yeah.
show is for you. If you are somewhat sensitive, it may not be for you. I'm
And there's
just giving that
definitely
caveat.
truth there. And I think we probably come from totally different ideological backgrounds, but it doesn't matter to me. It's like truth is truth.
No.
What is
And
truth? Find out
yeah.
on
And
Weezy's show.
I really enjoy you, Monica, because we view,
Sweetie.
even though we may have some differences sometimes, I think for the most part, we at the very least can see where each other's coming from, and,
Yeah,
and we can have these
absolutely.
discussions, which I think is super awesome.
We're
And it's
both-
rare these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're both, I will say we're both looking for the actual truth, and that's enough for me. Anyway, thank you so much, Weezy. This is Monica Perez. Hang on just one sec. See you guys later. Thanks for coming.